This issue here is a key contributor to why we may be feeling depressed, anxious, lonely, or misunderstood. We get annoyed with small things more easily and may end up arguing a lot more. Sadly, this has an impact on our relationships, mental health, decision making, and also self-esteem. That's a lot of brain activity within the dark side and can lead to rumination. Negativity bias is hardwired into us. I want to leave you with a few things that I want to try and do to get on top of this and help my brain to recondition a little. Why is it that the bad things that happen always seem to be bigger than the good things that happen? We seem to remember the one thing that did not go to plan much more than the 7 things that did. We tend to focus on the development area of our workplace feedback much more than we focus on the great progress that we have made across other metrics. We remember the argument with our partner for longer than we remember the many good interactions and shared laughter that we had. And we certainly remember the time we told our child off a lot more than the hours of affection we showed them. Does any of this sound familiar? Well, you will not be alone. This phenomenon is what we call the negativity bias. I've been thinking about this concept and how it is affecting us for a while now, and I can't help but think that making a few changes here would make a huge difference on how we see the world, and more importantly, how we feel on a daily basis. I'm going to go through some examples of negativity bias, share some research with you, and at the end, give you some things that I'm working on to help me maintain a happier state in a world that is increasingly focused on the negative. If you are ready to get away from the drama and feel a little more positive, then stick around. This video is definitely for you. My name is Bobby, and this is Real People, Real Talk. Let me start off by saying, I'm not an expert on this subject matter. I'm just a real guy in the real world, working through the same struggles as most. I'm figuring it out as I go, and I'm bringing you my thoughts and opinions in the hope that will be thought-provoking for you too. I'm hoping that by diving a little deeper into negativity bias, we will be able to find better ways to deal with it, and in turn, create a happier world for us to live in. After all, this issue here is a key contributor to why we may be feeling depressed, anxious, lonely, or misunderstood. Let's have a look at some real-life examples of negativity bias to bring this into context. One thing I see a lot of, where a single event in a day ends up in us branding that day as a bad one. For instance, we may be going through our standard workday, and for some reason attend a meeting late. A colleague makes a comment about the lateness, and this continues to play on our minds. Later, when someone asks how our day was, the only thing we can think about is the fact that we were late and it was noticed, and this made it a nightmare of a day, regardless of the fact that we actually did some great things. Another good example is with our kids. We could spend the whole day with our kids and have a great time. Great parenting, kids are happy, we are spending a good amount of time with them, doing the things they want to do. But then, all of a sudden, they get a little bored and start making way too much noise for our liking, and we end up telling them off for being annoying for no reason. A lot of the time, all of the positives of the day are forgotten, and we just focus on this one moment where they behaved in a way they should not have. Plus, we will probably reflect on that and think that we reacted badly and now are bad parents, ending with the negative to focus on. Relationships with our partners are the same. For some reason, we end up holding on to the things that we said to each other that were irritating or upsetting, rather than the moments where we had a great conversation or found something funny together. The birthday party celebration where your partner took you out for lunch and you had a lovely time gets forgotten much quicker than the argument you had about the dishes. The negative words used are much more memorable than the kind ones. And what about the time you said or did something silly in front of a group of people? Most likely, every time you cross paths with them now, you're going to think about that time and feel awkward and uncomfortable. The truth is that this group of people have probably forgotten about this incident and have moved on completely. But we find it so hard to let go of the importance we place on that embarrassing event. These are all examples of human connection and the things that may happen every day. Negativity bias also shows up in other forms around us. For instance, the news have utilized this concept to get more eyeballs for a very long time. You know as well as I do that pretty much everything in the news is always spun in the most dramatic way. Whether you are watching it or reading it, it is segment after segment of shocking and/or emotional stories that signal immediate threats, Conflicts, disasters, and accidents are much more dramatic than the positive things that are happening in the world. Therefore, those get the most coverage or the headlines. To us as the consumer, it can then paint a picture of the world as being much worse than it really is. We are now also seeing this with social media. Creators have come to realize that using negative words in their titles or thumbnails will generate a few more clicks on their video or blog post. Equally, if creators are producing content about some sort of drama, it will most likely have more viewership than if it is about something positive that has happened. Have you also realized that in conversations, people may pay a lot more attention when you talk about something bad that has happened, rather than when you talk about the time you won an award at work? This makes me think that we maybe get into a place where we are training ourselves to continue putting more importance on the negative experiences rather than the positives. For instance, if you went to a job interview and you say it went well, the person listening will hear you out, but there is a completely different feel to it compared to if you would have said it was horrible. Part of that will be that they obviously want to be there for you if you had a challenging day. But there is also a part of that where the negative experience is going to make the person lean in a little closer and listen a little more attentively. Negativity bias is hardwired into us as humans. Let me explain. As most things that show up in our lives today, this negativity bias is likely due to evolution. Back in the cave days, paying attention to bad, dangerous threats was key for survival. We overlooked the good to pay more attention to the bad, because it needed immediate attention to keep the tribe and ourselves safe. When we notice the negative, our heart rate increases, the size of our pupils change, and we hone in on the supposed threat. We prime our body for a response. Therefore, evolution in biology is working hard to maintain the negativity bias. Of course, threats are very different today. The familiar saber-toothed tiger isn't coming over the hill anymore. Instead, we have the drama we see around us and the negative experiences we have in our day. Back in the cave days, we relied on the negativity bias to stay alive, and it had a very positive impact on our lives. Today, this negativity bias has a huge impact on our mental health and is probably not aiding us much anymore. Negativity bias was first named as such by two researchers, Paul Rosen and Edward Poisman. They suggested there was 4 factors involved in negativity bias. I found an article on Those Nerdy Girls that describes these 4 factors very well. Negative potency. Both negative and positive events or memories may be equal in magnitude, but the negative ones are more memorable and have greater consequences. They linger for longer. A steeper negative gradient. This refers to the fact that the closer we get to an event we are dreading, like going to the dentist or having a hard conversation with a loved one, the more we feel the negative emotion. Whereas when we are looking forward to a positive event, the emotional build-up isn't as strong. Negativity dominance. This describes our tendency to view ambiguous events more negatively. Not sure how to feel about something? Our brain will probably put a negative spin on it. And then negative differentiation. Negative emotions can be more complicated than positive ones. This means we must put more brain energy into working out how to cope. This makes the experience more memorable and intense. Mark Trusler and Stuart Soroka ran an experiment at McGill University in Canada. The volunteers weren't really told what the experiment was about and were told that there was an eye-tracking camera recording them while they watched the video, which they thought was the main purpose of the study. They were asked to select some stories to read from a news website, and were later asked whether they preferred positive or negative stories to read. The results? The majority of the participants said they preferred good news stories and also that the media was too focused on negative news. However, most of these participants chose stories with a negative sentiment rather than the positive ones. There were also a series of studies conducted by psychologist John Cacioppo. Participants were shown pictures of either positive, negative, or neutral images. The researchers then observed the electrical activity in the brain. The negative images produced a much stronger response than the other images did. This is just some of the research and data that is available on negativity bias. It is clear that this is a phenomenon that most humans will be dealing with. And as with everything, it will be more prominent for some compared to others. Sadly, this has an impact on our relationships, mental health, decision making, and also self esteem. When it shows up in relationships, we may be focused heavily on the worst case scenario rather than giving our friends and family the benefit of the doubt. We may also expect the worst from our partner, friends, or family members and let those things linger in our minds. In return, we show them less love and come across a lesser version of ourselves. We get annoyed with small things more easily and may end up arguing a lot more. Focusing on the negativity too much also contributes to anxiety and depression. According to the National Science Foundation, 80% of our thoughts are negative, and 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. That's a lot of brain activity within the dark side and can lead to rumination. We get stuck in this space and find it hard to be happy, even in the moments where we should be. We may also remain in that state of increased stress, making us feel on edge constantly. When it comes to decision making, negativity bias makes us consider the negative more than the positive. We can see this in reviews for purchase decisions. Even if you think a product is great, if there is a couple of negative reviews, it's going to seriously affect your decision to go ahead and purchase it, despite the fact that there may be hundreds of positive reviews. Equally, we may place more importance on the negative outcomes of a decision rather than the logical ones, resulting in making a bad decision or just missing out on something that we should not have missed out on. Finally, in terms of self-esteem, negativity bias can impact how you feel about yourself, but also potentially affect your performance and career aspirations at work. For instance, if we focus on something that we said or did that was embarrassing or just not the right thing in the moment, we may decide to distance ourselves from a friend or family member, leading to social isolation and feelings of loneliness. At work, we may dwell on critical feedback and because of that take less risks or try new things. This may impact our ability to move forward and chase that promotion. Looking at today's impact of negativity bias, it becomes clear very quickly that it would be more beneficial for us to be aware of it and see if there is something we can do to try and avoid it. I want to leave you with a few things that I want to try and do to get on top of this and help my brain to recondition a little. Number 1, it is important to pay attention to what's going on in your brain. Self-awareness is key. Knowing when I'm getting too close to negative thoughts and realizing that they are lingering allows me to ask my brain to get me something more positive. It sounds a little crazy, but I do firmly believe it works. It helps me to see the positives in my life rather than the negatives. There's always something positive going on. Our brain just needs a little support to shift the tension there, rather than staying with what it has been conditioned for. Number 2. In line with the first tip, I think being grateful for what is good helps to limit negativity. For example, yes, we just had a bump with another car and it now needs fixing, but I'm grateful for the fact that no one in the family was hurt in the process. Cars can be fixed or replaced. Yes, of course it's frustrating because it's unnecessary, but I choose more life every time, and I'm grateful for that. Training your brain for gratitude quickly gives you this mentality of dismissing the negative because you are much more hooked on finding things to be grateful for. Number 3, surrounding yourself with positive people helps a lot. There's a lot of drama farming at the moment. Drama farming being the action of deliberately focusing on the negatives or the drama to induce more interest from others, specifically taking advantage of negativity bias. Well, if we set out to be more focused on positives, drama farming will get tedious after a while. So choose positive people around you, those that want to celebrate good times rather than stay in the dark place of negativity. Sure, you don't want to change who your friends are, but we can certainly influence and change in what we talk about. Of course, that comes with a caveat. Sometimes we need to be there for our friends and just sit in the mud with them. But it means you can choose not to promote the negatives of the story, but instead help your friend find what they're grateful for and in turn make them feel better about the situation. Number 4, get really purposeful about problems and solving them. If a problem occurs, the quicker we get to understanding everything that we have in our power to solve it will determine how we feel about it thereafter. If I've done everything I can, I will find it easier to let it go. Whereas if I let it linger and not find out or do what I can, it will most likely turn into an anxious feeling about the problem. It's good to get fast at problem solving, or at least doing what we can. We can then find joy in what we have, knowing that everything that we could have been done has been done. This brings me on to the last one. Finding joy in what we have. Similar to gratitude or finding positives within the negatives, this is about restructuring your thoughts. Rather than worrying about that uncomfortable conversation at work on Monday, I want to find joy in my time with the family, for instance. The last thing we want to do is to waste those precious moments for some negative thoughts that are swirling around in our heads. And if it's really that bad, then put your trust in your tribe and tell them how you feel. Not only will it give some context as to why we are acting a little different, it will also help allow for the tribe to provide the backup where it is needed. I hope some of the content within this video has resonated with you and that some of it has been helpful. If it has, please like this video to let me know. There is a clear focus on negativity all around us, and I worry that it is affecting us more than we think. If you haven't done so yet, please also subscribe to the channel. Not only is it the #1 way to support what we're doing here, it also shows me that I'm on the right track with the content that I'm bringing to you. Thank you for watching and for your support so far. I really appreciate it. My name is Bobby, and this is Real People, Real Talk. I hope to see you again soon.